Are we alone in the universe? That is a question that has gotten many people talking over the decades and centuries, and even millennia, depending on who you believe. And of course, Hollywood has made all sorts of media about what it would be like for aliens to exist and how we would react to them. But that does beg the question: how would we react to aliens should we find them? And given that NASA is our go-to place for such things, shouldn't they have a plan in place? Well, allow us to show you how NASA is preparing for alien contact. So let's get to the obvious question and get that one right out of the way. Is NASA honestly looking for alien life? Of course, it's a natural part of not just what they do, but a byproduct of their exploring space as a whole. Don't forget, one of the biggest things that NASA is doing is going and searching for planets that are like Earth, and by that token, if they find a place like that, what's to say they wouldn't find life? Now, the catch, of course, is that some people go and see some of NASA's findings and misinterpret what is being talked about. As a result, NASA scientists are encouraging the scientific community to establish a new framework that provides context for findings related to the search for life. Writing in the journal Nature last year, they proposed creating a scale for evaluating and combining different lines of evidence that would ultimately lead to answering the question of, are we alone in the universe? In the article led by Jim Green, the agency's chief scientist, a NASA group offers a sample scale to use as a starting point for discussions among anyone who would use it, such as scientists and communicators. They envision a scale informed by decades of experience in astrobiology, a field that probes the origins of life on Earth and possibilities of life elsewhere. Having a scale like this will help us understand where we are in terms of the search for life in particular locations, and in terms of the capabilities of missions and technologies that help us in that quest, Green stated. The scale contains 7 levels, reflective of the winding, complicated staircase of steps that would lead to scientists declaring that they have found a life beyond Earth. Now, as an analogy, Green and colleagues point to the Technology Readiness Level Scale, a system used inside NASA to rate how ready a spacecraft or technology is to fly. Along this spectrum, cutting-edge technologies such as the Mars helicopter Ingenuity begin as ideas and develop into rigorously tested components of history-making space missions. The authors hope that in the future, scientists will note in published studies how their new astrobiology results fit into such a scale. Journalists could also refer to this kind of framework to set expectations for the public and stories about new scientific results, so that small steps don't appear to be giant leaps. Until now, we have set the public up to think there are only 2 options. It's life or it's not life, said Mary Wojtek, head of NASA's astrobiology program and at NASA headquarters in Washington and study co-author. We need a better way to share the excitement of our discoveries and demonstrate how each discovery builds on the next, so that we can bring the public and other scientists along on the journey. It is exciting each time a rover or orbiter finds proof that water once flowed on Mars. Each new finding shows us that Mars's past climate was similar to Earth's, and that the red planet could have once supported life. But that doesn't necessarily mean any sort of life ever lived there or that anything lives there now. Discoveries of rocky planets orbiting stars beyond our sun, especially those that could harbor liquid water on their surfaces, are similarly tantalizing, but not proof by themselves of life beyond Earth. So how do we understand these observations in context? At the first step of the scale, level 1, scientists would report hints of a signature of life, such as a biologically relevant molecule. An example would be a future measurement of some molecule on Mars potentially related to life. Moving up to level 2, scientists would ensure that the detection was not influenced by the instruments having been contaminated on Earth. At level 3, they would show how this biological signal is found in an analog environment, such as an ancient lakebed on Earth similar to the Perseverance rover's landing site, Jezero Crater. Now, to add evidence to the middle of the scale, scientists would supplement those initial detections with information about whether the environment could support life and rule out non-biological sources. For Mars in particular, samples returned from Mars could help make this kind of progress. Perseverance will soon be collecting and storing samples with the goal of a future mission returning them one day. Since different teams on Earth would have the opportunity to independently verify hints of life in Mars samples with a variety of instruments, the combination of their evidence could achieve level 6, the second highest step on the scale. But in this example, to reach level 7, the standard by which scientists would be most sure they had detected life on Mars, an additional mission to a different part of Mars may be required. Achieving the highest levels of confidence requires the active participation of the broader scientific community, the authors write. This scale would apply to discoveries from beyond the solar system too. Exoplanets, planets outside our solar system, are believed to outnumber the 300 billion stars in the Milky Way. But small, rocky planets are harder to study from afar than gas giants. Future missions and technologies would be necessary to analyze the atmospheres of Earth-sized planets, with Earth-like temperatures receiving adequate amounts of starlight for life as we know it. The James Webb Space Telescope, which is now operational, is the next big advance in this area. But it will likely take an even more sensitive telescope to detect the combination of molecules that would indicate life, or to truly see life in action, if you will. You can see why such a scale is important, to not just announce things, but put them into context. The last thing that NASA or anyone wants is for them to say that they've found alien life, when in fact they found clues that could lead to the discovery of alien life. That is a big difference. And while you might think that such a scale is unnecessary because such misinformation wouldn't be believed, are you so sure about that? Because right around the time that this study was being put out for the world to talk about, another story came out that gripped the world. It was one that said that NASA was going to hire a set of 24 priests to help determine what effects would happen on the human population should they find out that aliens really do exist. There were various publications writing about this and stating that it was true, when in fact it wasn't. Not that we wouldn't be opposed to such things happening because such insight would be nice, but it hasn't happened as of yet. But it was written as if it was happening. So thus, that scale is very important so that people don't get the wrong ideas. Now let us ask another question. What are NASA's protocols for first contact with aliens? Believe it or not, they don't have them. We looked. Sure, they have ways to announce if they find things like life, but a true alien contact scenario and its protocols aren't known or stated specifically. The scale we mentioned before was to help ensure a misrepresentation of facts that doesn't happen, but actual contact with aliens hasn't been laid out. Then again, you'd almost have to wonder why they would do that at all. Think about it like this. Even if aliens find their way to Earth, who is to say that we can actually talk with them? They might not have a way to communicate with us, just like we might not have a way to communicate with them. What's more, the intention of potential alien race is something that we wouldn't know about, and Hollywood has loved to speculate on. After all, they usually frame them as peaceful aliens just trying to talk, or an angry force that wants to dominate the planet. And given the current climate of our world, it's not hard to predict that humanity would likely lean towards the latter over the former. Now, that is not to say that NASA won't have a protocol for it, or that the world leaders don't have a protocol of sorts in case life actually does come to our world, or we discover theirs. But right now, we don't know it. To be clear, this is not a reason to panic. As of right now, we don't have proof of alien life, so let's just not fret about it just yet. But if or when it does happen, please do keep an open mind. So, what do you think? What do you think of this look at NASA and their plans, both real and fake, for how we should handle alien contact should it come? Do you personally believe in aliens? How do you think humanity would react to aliens should we come across them in one form or another? Would it be as bad as the movies project? What do you think NASA's plan should be for first contact when or if it does happen? Let us know in the comments below, and we will see you next time on the channel.